Okay. In today's slidecast, we're going to cover times and dates, which are coming straight out of Offord's chapter 40. In order to do times and dates, you need to be aware of ordinal numbers. Ordinal numbers are the numbers that tell us in which order things occur, first, second, third, for instance. Please go back to Offord and review those ordinal numbers, how to use them, and be aware that just like in English, if you have a compound number, so two words, only the last element gets an adjectival ending. So in English, we don't say 20th first century, it's just the 21st. Likewise, in Russian, it would be 21 век. Something to keep in mind. Let's start by talking about telling time in Russian, which is a little bit complicated when we're doing colloquial time. And in Russian, when we do colloquial time, you're going to tell it a little bit differently, depending on whether you are talking about the first half hour from the first minute past the hour to the 30th, or the second half hour from the 31st minute to the 59th. In the first half hour, it's probably the most complicated, and it's a little unusual, I think, for English speakers. That is because you have to think about which hour it is in terms of order of hours. It's like the centuries. We are in the year 2014, so it starts with 20, but this is not the 20th century, it's the 21st century. In the 1800s, that was the 19th century. A child's first year of life begins from the day he is born and extends up until his first birthday, at which point his second year of life begins. And this is the way Russians think about time, so that can confuse Americans because it seems like they're thinking an hour ahead. So I don't know how best to make that sink in. Many of you I know are aware of it because I saw a lot of you got this right on the pretest. Some of you I think may not be aware of this yet. So anyway, you tell, you give a number. In this case, it would be a cardinal number, and then you use the word minuta in the appropriate case, which of course depends on which number you used before. So 2 minuty, but 25 minut, 21 minuta. And then you give the ordinal number. So we're going to talk about whether it's the first hour or the second hour. And remember that the first hour is actually starts at 12 o'clock. The second hour starts at 1 o'clock, according to the way the Russians do things. So if we say it's 1:05, so it's now the second hour, 5 minut второго. For me personally, instead of trying to remember that it actually is the second hour, I just kind of think that I have to go up an hour. I don't know what will work for you. 7:25, 25 минут восьмого. By the time you get to 15, you can of course say 15 минут, or you can use the Russian word for quarter, which is четверть. So it can be четверть четвертого, or it can be 15 минут четвертого. Do notice that in the first half hour, Russians don't typically leave out the word minut. So you don't really hear 5 второго. You'll hear really 5 минут второго most frequently. When you get to the half hour, it's половина первого, or полпервого, which is often written as one word. It can be written both ways. I think more often it's probably written as one word, unlike what I did here. Now, when we get to the second half hour, you don't have to use the ordinal number, but you do have to do a little bit of math. Just like in English sometimes, if you look and you see that it's 7:35, we'll often say it's 25 minutes until 8. Russians, instead of saying until, they use без, meaning without, and that takes the genitive case. So you use без plus the cardinal number, so no ordinal numbers here in the genitive case, and then you name the hour that is coming, the closest hour. So 7:55, it's 5 minutes before 8, is без 5:08. 9:45 is either 15 minutes before 10 or a quarter till 10, and it becomes без четверти 10. Now talking about telling at what time, a lot of this is going to be review, but повторение мать учения. If you're telling time on the hour, you use v plus the accusative, so в 2 часа, at 2 o'clock. If you are in the first half hour up to the half, but not including the half, it's v plus the accusative also. So в 5 минут второго is at 5 minutes after 1. Once you get to the half hour, however, you use v plus the prepositional. So в половине третьего is at 2:30. It is true that you will sometimes see this form, в полтретьего, as I said, often written together. However, in class, I would like for you to use the full form to make sure that you are aware of what the rule is. In the second half hour, occasionally some Russians might put a preposition v in, but usually they won't because there already is a preposition and it sounds a little bit weird to have two prepositions together. So, передача начнется без четверти восемь. The program will begin at 7:45. So you won't change anything here. It's just clear from the context. Moving on to days of the week. When we're talking about days of the week, we use v plus the accusative. So в понедельник, в субботу, во вторник, but воскресенье. And it's a brief note in case you have forgotten or never learned when we use vo and when we use v. Vo is used before consonant clusters beginning with v or f. Otherwise, even if the next word begins with a v or a f, we don't use the extra o. It's called an epenthetic o. So Vladivostok, Florida, here you would use vo with either of those two. Во Владивостоке, во Флориде. But you wouldn't, for instance, with Philadelphia. That would just be Philadelphia, just with the v. Moving on to months. When we're talking about in a month, we use v plus prepositional. So notice even in English we have our own sort of strange quirks that it's on a particular day but in a particular month. It seems logical to us, but it probably really isn't. It's just idiomatic. And so Russian just uses accusative with one, prepositional with the other. So в январе. Now let's talk about days of the month, dates. And if we want to answer what's today's date, then we will use an ordinal number. So we'll say it's the 21st of January. And that ordinal number will be in neuter because the word for date is число. So it's the 21st date of January. We would probably say day. And the Russians will leave out число normally. You might occasionally hear it. But for instance, сегодня 21 января. So it's neuter. However, once you want to say on a particular day of the month, here is a problem that a lot of English speakers have. We want to add an extra preposition because in English we have a preposition on. When we're doing this in Russian, there is no preposition. Instead, you use the ordinal number in the genitive case. So if we wanted to say that there will be a concert on the 21st of January, it's 21 января состоится концерт. Now moving on to years. So we started with minutes, now working all the way up to years. You use an ordinal number for the last component of the year only. This is when you're just naming the year. So if you wanted to say that it is 1984, in English, if we were to say it, which we almost never do, maybe on your college degree, this will be written out, 1984. In Russian, it's also the same 1984 год. So only that fourth is in the adjectival form, the ordinal form. If you want to say in a particular year, in Russian, we use v plus the prepositional, again, only for that final element. Nothing else changes. Just like it's в 21 веке, на 21, на 21. It's the same when we're dealing with years. So in 1984 is в 1984 году. So 1000 doesn't change to anything. You don't put it into the prepositional or into the accusative. Nothing happens to anything but that last element. And then, of course, we decline the word год. Same with in 2014, в 2014 году. Yes, тысяча is in a different form, but that is dictated by the number две, which takes genitive singular after it. That doesn't have anything to do with the ordinal numbers. Now notice when we say in 2000, the 2000th year, then just in English that becomes an ordinal number in and of itself, and the same thing happens in Russian. It's в 2000 году, but it wouldn't be в 2004 году. Also, the same thing to remember with, say, 1980, in the 1980th year, and then 80 becomes an ordinal number, and it would be в 1980 году. Now, once you put things together and start making longer dates, the rules are a little bit different, and I hope that this chart will help you. And you'll notice it's a lot like it is in English that when we say in a particular year, well, if it's just a year, we say in a year. But as soon as you say in March of a certain year, then we use of, where Russian would use the genitive case. So in 1950, just by itself, в 1950 году, once you add the month on, then you start using the genitive as kind of an add-on case. В марте 1950 года, 5 марта 1950 года, and you can go as far as в пятницу 5 марта 1950 года. So notice that the rules change as you add things on. The genitive is kind of the add-on case. We're going to do a little bit of practice here rather than doing them on Learning Suite's quiz site. I think this is a little bit simpler, and you can get the answers immediately afterwards. Learning Suite theoretically was allowing you to do that, but I'm hearing that that didn't work. To make this easier, I'm not going to pause. I'm just going to have you pause the video when you see what you are supposed to do. Write out the word. When you're ready, unpause and move on to see the answer. So translate into Russian, it's 5 after 12. When you're ready, click. Сейчас 5 минут первого. Okay. At 2:30. В половине третьего. It's 25 till 5. Без 25. I guess you would say сейчас. Notice you do not need это here. This is not the time to use это, which means not it's, but that this is. Today is February 3rd, 2014. Сегодня 3 февраля 2014 года. In 1995, в 1995 году. In April of 2015, в апреле 2015 году. In the year 2000, в 2000 году.